Welcome back, and here's another project of mine that I've had to tackle. There are some projects around this house that I knew that needed to get done, but then there were some others that kind of sprung up on me, and I'm doing these out of necessity, and it's certainly not as I suppose you could argue that yes, it is home improvement, but it's home improvement because I'm kind of being forced to do it, unfortunately. I'm not being forced to do it by anybody other than Mother Nature, because I am constantly fighting this battle, and I am just honestly sick to death of fighting this battle. And I'm gonna win because I am stubborn. I'm half Portuguese, so I don't know if any of you are aware of the fact that Portuguese people can be mighty stubborn, and that is definitely me. I am very stubborn. Now I will sit there and go at something until I win. And this is kind of going to be a battle of mine that I am eventually going to win. So what am I talking about? Well, here's my pool. I should say our pool. My wife also enjoys the pool. This is our pool, and as you can see, I don't know, I'm not really sure whether or not this GoPro has the kind of resolution. Let me just go at it like this, right? So if you see, there looks like there's dirt and stuff like that in there, and that's because there is dirt and stuff in the pool. And that dirt and stuff in the pool is because when we get a lot of rain out here, let me just kind of take you out here so that way you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And my property, though actually everybody's property, it all slopes down this way, right? So all the property that's up there, when we get these massive Texas storms that just dump an unbelievable amount of water, all that water collects from up here and it comes all the way down here and it floods onto our property. Like up there, there'll be standing water over here. It'll flood over the driveway. It'll come down here, and especially it likes to wash like right over here. It goes under the fence. And since this is kind of a low area, you can see like up there, it's a little bit higher. So this is kind of a little bit of a valley right here. So it just channels all that rainwater through here, and we wind up with it all accumulating back here. And there's kind of like almost like a river. It literally, I had, as you can see here, I have a berm that I had put up here just to kind of, assist in keeping some of that water from like just flowing all over in here. Now it dug its way out. You can see where it's all the wash is just kind of like washed underneath that fence, and it pushed all that dirt out of the way, and it came in here anyways. That's all fine and dandy, whatever, because after this happened a few times and I had to spend weeks getting this stupid pool. Well, it's not a stupid pool. The pool's great. But after it gets full of like mud, because that's what all this stuff is right here. All this stuff turns into mud, and it all washed into the pool because the pool was on the same ground level as all this right here. So, needless to say, it was unbelievably painful to have to do that every single time. So, what did I do? Well, you saw the stack of rock out there. I went ahead and built myself a little miniature wall that kind of goes around the pool right here. Still in the process of cleaning up. I've had other things that, had to get done, like I got the garage taken care of there. We got this downspout right here. And when it just absolutely just dumps rain, this thing turns into a freaking fire hose. It jets water out. You can see right here, that's not because I left it like that. This is all nice and clean. I never thought that there would be so much water that it would push out all that sand and make it come over here. But the problem is that all that sand, like I said, it's got a lot of like the real fine particulate in it. And it just like that, and there's another downspout that's over here on this side. So that downspout just gets tons of water and it all comes pouring down into here. And it's like a river. And it all, because this is also higher up here and it's lower down there, the water just goes whoop, and goes right into the pool. So anything that's up here that's getting washed down this way will ultimately wind up in the pool. And like I said, I'm sick to death of dealing with this because it is a massive pain to clean out that pool every time this kind of junk happens. So this is why I have all this stuff right here. This is going to hopefully take care of at least a good amount of the water that's going to come off that roof, because that roof collects an awful lot of water. That downspout over there also gets blasted with water when it pours, but I don't care because that goes down there and that's downhill. So it all just goes exactly where I want it to go anyways. Unfortunately here, this is uphill, that's downhill, but because I want to try and channel the water that's coming out of this downspout and put it over here, obviously I'm not going to be able to just go right across right here. I need to go underneath, right? So if I go underneath, that means I'm gonna have to have the pipes are gonna go underneath the ground, and if it goes underneath the ground, how is it going to come up again? It's just going to back up and then just flow everywhere, right? So that's what this is for. I bought a sump basin. I got a sump pump over there, 3/4 inch horsepower. It's probably overkill, but I don't care. I would much rather have too much power than too little power, because I am just, like I said, I'm done with this. I'm sick to death of having to do this. I got a trenching shovel, so that way I can go ahead and dig a trench, and the pipes, these pipes here will be carrying the water from the downspout. There's another downspout that's on the other side of that fence there. I'm going to channel that water along here. The sump basin, I'm going to dig right here, and it's going to go right here. And I'm going to drop the sump pump in there, cut out a couple holes. They've got a lid for the sump pump. And I'll cut out some holes on that. And that's where the downspout there is going to go into that. On the top of that, that downspout over there is going to come off on the top of that. And then I'll cut a hole in the side of this thing. And that's where my 1.5 inch PVC that I got right here, that's going to go into there on the outlet of the sump pump. That's going to go ahead, and I'm going to tunnel down over here. And come right underneath the sidewalk and come up on this side over here and just bring it all the way back here somewhere. I don't know, I haven't really decided like how far back I'm gonna go. I guess that really depends on like how sick and tired I get of digging a trench, right? So I would like to get it back down around here, because where that bend is, that's pretty much where all that water has a tendency to just go ahead and, you know, wander on out of here, going back down the hill that way. So that's the goal here. Got a lot of work to do. Right now it's like about 3:30, almost 4 o'clock. It's winter, so I'm not going to have a heck of a lot of daylight today, but I am going to get started on this. I think the rain is actually supposed to get here tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to actually get this thing operational, because that's going to be an awful lot of work trying to get that trench dug, tunneled, and everything else. I just don't see that happening, but I'm going to give it a shot and see like what I can get done today. Now that I've flapped my gums for all this time, it's time for me to go ahead and get some work done and get this project started. So let's get to it. Wow, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, you know, we were in the 70s. Today, it got down to like, I think it was like 24 degrees or 25, anywhere between 24 to 26 degrees overnight. So it was like freezing freaking cold, which is kind of crazy. And then on top of that, it's like really windy today, like all night long. The wind was just kind of blowing. Woke me up, which really sucked because I really needed to get a good amount of sleep after yesterday. All this stuff that you see down here, this is all super dense, saturated clay. Trying to get this stuff out of this hole that was dug was just, and digging down too. I mean, I had to get a rotary hammer and a spade shovel bit to go on that rotary hammer to be able to hammer down through this stuff because it is just so thick and so dense. And then trying to get it out, I had to use the post hole digger. And even with a post hole digger, everything was just getting like the clay was sticking to the post hole digger. And that's why you see me kind of take again, with a time lapse, it happens really super quickly. But I sat down for a second. I was like, what can I do to make this speed up? Because this is ridiculous. I'm killing myself trying to get this clay out of this hole. So what I wound up doing was I got that Home Depot bucket and filled it with water and some just dishwashing soap. And every time, again, you can't really tell in the time lapse, maybe you can, but you'll see I'm like dipping it into that soapy water and then getting it and plunging it in there and getting the stuff that I've hammered out with the rotary hammer and putting that in the wheelbarrow. Because otherwise I was sitting there every time, with every single one of those post hole digger fulls of material, I'd have to like hold it with one hand, stick my glove in there and try and like claw that stuff out. I mean, just fighting with it, just every single every single one of those post hole fulls. This whole thing has been nothing but a massive battle. And I gotta say, I really love the optimism that I had on day one, thinking like, oh, I'll see how far I can get today to like, you know, I had a feeling that I was going to have a battle on my hands, but I didn't have any idea how much of a battle it was going to be, because this has just, it's been kicking my tail. I'm not even going to lie. Like I have every day, like yesterday, I was exhausted. You saw me, like I sat down, and again, you know, it's this time lapse. I was sitting down for a good like 5 minutes just because my heart rate was through the roof after I got done. Because yesterday I was bound and determined. I'm like, I'm finishing this freaking hole and I'm gonna dig that dang trench, and I did. I got it all done. So today, what I'm gonna do, I'm probably not gonna set up the time lapse just because this is all just material that I just need to like get my trench shovel, and I'll be able to you know, get that out of there fairly quickly. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try a couple of different things. Whatever works best, obviously, is what I'll stick with. But to start with, I'm gonna go ahead and use the trenching shovel to start the hole that's gonna go and connect underneath that sidewalk there. And then after that, I'm gonna bust out with a pressure washer and see if maybe I can blast a good amount of that material out of the way to tunnel in over there. And then I might also have to go ahead and just take one of those 1.5 inch PVC pipes and just start driving it in with like a sledgehammer or something like that, just to have a sacrificial piece, and then just pull it out and then just kind of core my way through. I'm not really sure what's going to work best. I just know that this clay is just a freaking nightmare. It is just a freaking nightmare, and I'm really looking forward to getting this project finished. It's noon right now, and it's warmed up quite a bit. When I say quite a bit, it's like 40 degrees out, but I mean, compared to like 26, you know, this is much better. And it feels like Mother Nature is just against me, right? Because like I said, one of the things I'm going to try with this is a pressure washer. And I mean, you guys all know pressure washers, they use water, and it's freezing freaking cold out. So now, yesterday was nice and warm and everything else, and 70 degrees, which I don't know. I think that I would have rather have it reversed, right? Where yesterday was super cold, because that way I was doing much of the physical labor yesterday with all the digging and trenching and all that. That was yesterday, and having the nice weather just made it just more exhausting. I lost like 2.5 pounds just yesterday, just to kind of give you an idea like how much work this has been. Like I weighed myself in the morning before I started work. And then after I was done and went back inside, I weighed myself again. 2.5 pounds lost just from doing this. And I was trying to keep myself hydrated, but I think I still wound up being really dehydrated yesterday too. So it's really, really freaking tough work. And I got to say, those of you that have tractors and PTOs and, you know, have the ability, maybe you have a backhoe or something like that, this could have been done like within 2 hours, maybe tops, I think, if I had a backhoe. But I mean, you know, how often would I ever use a backhoe, you know, out here? Can I justify spending $30,000 for this? No, I cannot. So, you know, it's just back-breaking work. But, you know, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully today I will literally see light at the end of this tunnel that I'm going to be digging underneath the sidewalk here. And that way I can get everything else all plumbed up, get the downspouts tied in to the sump basin, and then test this thing out and see how it works. That's the goal anyways. I only got about 4 or 5 hours to do it. So with that being said, time to get back to work.
So I'm just going to go ahead and voice over here because it was super windy, and then I also cut down a lot of the action. And you can see here I'm clearing out the trench that I dug the other day, and then I start digging just kind of a starter hole, so that way I can go ahead and get that pressure washer to start blasting underneath the sidewalk there. And one of the things that wound up happening, because of course, you know, nothing can be simple, I wound up hitting an actual drainage pipe underneath there. There's a PVC drainage pipe, and I believe that that was tied in to the French drain system that I have that's a little bit to the upper side of the property there, the high side of the property. And you can barely see it there, but I wound up getting like a pickaxe and taking the trenching shovel and just smashing away. You could see the water that was also collected inside of the drain pipe. And then my wife came out to hydrate me, which was super nice because she knows that I have a bad habit of not drinking enough fluids when I'm really working pretty hard. So I get the pressure washer out, get that thing all started up. Have to apply the choke, of course, and take the choke off so that way it'll actually start working properly. And I start blasting my way and get myself all nice and wet. And this is the reason why I really wish the days were reversed, because getting all that cold, muddy water splashed on you while it's freezing cold outside was not very pleasant. And then I'm on the other side by the sump basin pit with a pickaxe, and you can see how tough this clay is. I mean, the pickaxe got stuck almost every single time that I'm trying to like tunnel underneath there. But I made enough of a small hole to be able to get the pressure washer in there, and then just start blasting my way through on this side as well. And the whole idea there was that, you know, get as far as I could on the other side, get as far as I could on the opposite side, and hopefully get it all tied together. There was just so much water that had collected down in that sump pit that I wound up having to get the shop vac out, my wet, dry shop vac, and getting that water out of the pit, because, you know, I need to stand in there in order for me able to kind of see underneath, to make sure that I'm kind of keeping it as level as I possibly can as I'm using the pressure washer to kind of blast away all that material that's underneath there. You can see, like, I'm pretty much as far as I can get underneath there, and I don't know if I show it or not, but you can actually see water that's blasting through on the other side. So I knew that there was a connection at this point in time. And that's when the GoPro died. So you can actually see I got the PVC pipe through, so good to go there. And I was just kind of doing a little bit of cleanup there because the patio is starting to get really coated with a lot of the mud clay that I was tracking around everywhere. And then it's just that on this day I was just, like I said, bound and determined to get as much as I could done and get this thing operational. So I'm going ahead and putting together all the PVC pipes. And by the way, I had in my head to dig a curved trench, but don't do that. Dig straight trenches and go at right angles or at 45 degrees, because that pipe does not bend as much as you think it would.
Welcome to another very cold, at least for Texas day. As you can see over there, the thermostat is almost 40, so we're looking at probably like 38, 39 degrees outside right now, so it's pretty chilly for Texas. It's fairly unusual to get this cold. And last night, the temperature dropped. Like, I mean, you saw the time lapse. I was out here until evening, because I was bound and determined to get at least this system pumping, and I did. I finally was able to go ahead and get this thing to the point where now it is pumping water, which is great. Today, I'm just going to be wrapping things up because the majority of everything is done. I thought maybe yesterday it would go a lot smoother. Unfortunately, tunneling underneath this sidewalk proved to be a really big challenge for me. And I think one of the things that I made a big mistake, and I could have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of grief, because I got really, really frustrated yesterday and just pretty much angry because I was trying to get underneath here. And one of the things that didn't dawn on me is that as I was trying to shove that PVC pipe down underneath there, the PVC pipe is going in at an angle, so it was like, you know, hitting the ground there, and it wasn't, you know, wasn't like, because the actual tunnel, it's pretty flat inside of there, but you know, it's coming in at an angle, so it was like hitting the bottom of that. And I was thinking maybe I was getting hung up on a root or something like that underneath there, and I was just super frustrated. I could see the light coming through, and I'm like, why can't I get this through there? So finally, what I did, in order for me to get that pipe through there, is I took that piece of rope and I took my pressure washer. I stuck the end of the rope stuck the end of the rope into the end of the PVC pipe, then took the pressure washer and just blasted the rope so it went all the way through the pipe. And then I stuck the pipe in as far as I could get it. And then what I did was I took the pressure washer once again, and because I was blasting, and as I was blasting with the pressure, just the pressure washer, I could see the water spraying up over here. So I knew for a fact that there was a connection going on underneath here. So I took the pressure washer as I had the pipe resting inside of here and blasted it through, and what it did was it pushed that rope all the way through onto this side. So then what I was able to do was I tied off I took the rope and tied it off just onto the trowel temporarily. And the whole point of that was so that way when I pull on that rope, the trowel would get stuck on the end of it and wouldn't come through. That would give me a nice solid, you know, way for me to grab on to the rope and pull the rope up and at the same time kind of tug. And that's all it needed. It just needed to bow that pipe just a little bit to get it up and underneath, and then boom, came right through. So food for thought. If you have to do a project like this and you're trying to tunnel underneath a sidewalk and you have to get that pipe through there, and if it's not big enough and you can't get down far enough to be able to see, and then if you haven't trenched out far enough to where it's nice and level and that pipe will go through nice and straight, if you've done like me where you just kind of like make somewhat of a temporary little depression here to tunnel underneath, you're gonna have to do what I did, where you know you have some kind of a rope or something along those lines, where you have something on this end of it and you could pull up on that pipe to get it to carry through, because otherwise you're just going to be setting yourself up for failure and frustration. And man, I spent way too much time trying to get that underneath there, and that's all I needed to do. Yeah, I got the discharge line all the way out here. That pipe on there, that's just temporary, because when I was testing it out, I didn't want the water to get back into the trench and flow downhill and back into the sump pump basin area. There'll be two things I'm going to do. Is I'm going to be drilling some holes into this. I'm going to have to get my shop vac and empty out all the water that's actually in the pit right now. Empty all that water out of there. I'll be drilling some holes in the actual sump basin itself. And then what I'll do is I'll get some cloth, the landscape fabric cloth, and line around here. And the point of that is so that way the holes will provide a way for any excess water that's hanging around on the outside of the sump pump basin to migrate inside that basin. So that way the pump will be able to pump everything that lands inside of here out of it, right? So that's the big goal there, is to make sure that I have plenty of storage capacity, and then that pea gravel will kind of act as a filter to make sure like as much of the sand and mud and stuff like that will not actually get into the basin. And if it does, it'll be so fine it won't really matter. That pump will just
discharge it, no problem. Probably gonna have to do something with all this excess dirt that I got over here, try and level that out. And depending on how much pea gravel I have left, I will probably just pea gravel this whole thing, just to kind of, once again, try to keep the amount of mud and debris that will just flow out of here to prevent that from happening. And then I'll have to backfill this. I'll be doing the same thing here. I don't know, I might line this with some of the landscape fabric also, just to maybe prevent some roots from entering into the trench. So maybe landscape fabric the whole trench here. And then what I'll do is I'll also line this with pea gravel as well, over the top of the pipe, and then I'll backfill it with the rest of the dirt and just tamp that all down, make that all nice and secure. Then the other thing I got to do today is I'll have to tie that downspout to the sump basin, tie the downspout that's outside that fence, cut a hole through the bottom of the fence, and run another 4-inch line, assuming I can make it. I don't know. Now that I'm looking at that, I should be able to make it. I think that's long enough. It's not going to take too much of that 4-inch line to go from here just right there. So I think I'll be okay. So got a lot of work. Got kind of an early start today. I think it's like around 11 a.m. Yep, it's almost 11 a.m. on the dot. So hopefully the day will warm up a little bit so I don't have to be so cold, because like right now it's pretty cold outside. All right, so the next bit will just be time lapse of me starting to work and wrapping things up. So gonna get to it. Okay, well, that was a wrap on this project, at least as far as I'm willing to go at any point in time in the future. For all intents and purposes, it's going to work, and I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out, actually. And I will have, of course, a demo, but I wanted to show that I did go ahead and clean up back here because, it was coated with mud, and all the tools and everything else that I've been using have just kind of accumulated. And today, what I went ahead and did was exactly kind of what I said. Let me get out of the sun here so that way you can actually see what the heck is going on. I went ahead and did what I said I was going to do, and that is take all the pea gravel and go ahead and fill in this area with it. It also has landscape fabric underneath there, and then I also went ahead and lined it with the same brick that I have, or stone that I have over here. And this is the final results here of
the actual sump basin, I went ahead and just put a little bit of the decorative rock that I had over here kind of around that, just to kind of like break it up a little bit. And also that'll kind of help to keep some of the pea gravel from falling in. And the pea gravel is, most of it is too big to fit through those holes, but there are some small bits that probably will fall in. But I believe that the sump pump will be fine with that. It'll just suck it up and blow it out. They're not like, it's not like huge rocks or anything like that. Huge rocks won't be able to get in there. It's just small little stuff. And then also I went ahead and cleaned up the area right here. As you can tell, that's where the area that I had, well, you probably can't tell at this point, but this is the area where I had like removed all the stones, the flagstone that I had laid down there, as well as removed a couple of these, the stones that are around the perimeter there, and tunnel underneath there. I mean, you saw it on the video. And then of course, you know, that's the trench that I dug there. And over time, you know, that'll go ahead and kind of heal up, and you won't even be able to tell that I had done anything back here at all. And I'm still kind of on the fence about the discharge outlet there. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do as far as that's concerned, but I might go ahead and wind up cutting that down so that's kind of flush, and then just use like one of those, I forgot what they're called, but basically a small little drain that you put out in your yard. Probably put one of those out there, but it'll be for an outlet, not for an inlet. And with that in mind, I think that it's time to go ahead and give a little demo here, right? I mean, this would be remiss, or I would be remiss if I didn't show how things turned out and how it works. After all this time, I'm sure that any of you who have spent this amount of time wading through all this footage, you're probably wanting to see it actually in action. And I don't mind watching it work either, because I got to tell you, it's very satisfying seeing this thing working. Because man, there was a lot of effort put into this. I think it took, like, all together, including today, I want to say it was like a 5-day project. Now, you know, bear in mind, I had made some mistakes along the way, and it's probably as good a time as any to talk about mistakes and maybe learn from mine. For one thing, if you're wearing gloves and you're working around dangerous equipment, and make no mistake, a pressure washer can be very dangerous, because a pressure washer, well, it depends. Oh, I forgot to unplug it because it's already working. I wanted to kind of fill it up so that way we get a little bit more of a discharge. I'm not going to show it just yet. Yeah, I wanted to give that thing a chance to fill up and get out of the sunlight. I know it probably looks nice having the sun lighting me. Well, let me go ahead. I'll just grin and bear with it, because I know that right now it's golden hour, right? So I suppose I look just absolutely beautiful. Where was I? I was kind of going off on a tangent. Oh, right, being safe. Yeah, pressure washers. The one that I have is a 3,000 psi pressure washer. So it's no joke. And what wound up happening is that I didn't say anything about it at the time, but when I was feeding that rope down through that pipe, the 1.5 inch PVC pipe, the discharge line, I had accidentally, I take it off my gloves because I couldn't get a good grip on the PVC pipe with the gloves on, because it's really slick and slippery when it's wet and kind of muddy and everything. So what wound up happening is that as I was trying to hold onto the pipe, because if you don't hold on to it, you know, the pressure washer is just going to blast it away. As I was holding onto that pipe and I went to go blast it, the pipe ended up slipping from my hand, and since my fingers were right there at the edge of the pipe slipped away, and then the pressure washer caught my finger. And I got to tell you, you know, this is 3 days later, and there's still a huge gouge that is in here. I probably need stitches, probably, but will I go and get them? No, probably not. Why? Because I don't really relish the thought of them jabbing a needle through both sides of that thing, because it already hurts. It hurts really bad. I've been keeping it, you know, antibiotics and a Band-Aid on it, so it's not infected or anything like that. You know, I've been real careful with making sure that's nice and washed, but yeah, just be safe around equipment like that, because if you're not really careful and you're not really thinking about all the different possibilities, you can get caught, and that's what wound up happening to me. The other thing too is that you got to keep in mind that when you're working outside, there is a high chance that you are going to get scraped or cut, punctured, whatever. And if you have not had a tetanus shot in a little while, it would probably be a good idea to go get one. And we kind of had a little bit of a scare because the wheelbarrow that I have has rusty bolts that stick out on the inside of it. And I was wearing shorts, and I went over there to go dump a load of, or wheelbarrow full of the clay. What wound up happening is I went to go shove it up, shove the wheelbarrow up. The bolt caught my leg, and gave me a really good gouge with that. And since it was a rusty bolt, my wife especially was really concerned about that, and she's like, we haven't had, I think she's had a tetanus shot in the past 5 years or so, but I have not. And she was very concerned about that, and she said, you need to go, get that taken care of. And I looked it up, and yeah, actually, I didn't really know much about tetanus. I know that you can get it from rusty things, and that, if you don't get it treated, you can get an infection. But no, actually what can happen is you die from getting tetanus. So that's no joke. You gotta take care of that and keep yourself, immunized against tetanus, because that's some serious business right there. I had no idea it was really something so serious. And the other thing that is kind of a myth is that you only get it from like rusty stuff, like stepping on a rusty nail. That's the big wives' tale. And while that is true, almost everything out here can potentially give you tetanus, because apparently, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a bacteria or fungus or whatever the heck it is, but whatever it is, it'll exist in like horse manure and dust and all sorts of stuff. I believe it's, yeah, I'm not going to elaborate because I don't remember. I just read up on it briefly, and I was just like, oh, man. So I wound up going to urgent care, and I got myself a tetanus shot, and so I got it injected in this arm. This arm was sore for a good, 3 days after that. So that sucked. And there was something else that I wound up injuring myself on as well. And I'm trying to remember what the heck it was, but for life of me, I can't remember. So really the bottom line is just, be really, really careful. Be safety conscious when you're working with this stuff, because even something that you would never think about, like the wheelbarrow, catching your leg and potentially winding up with tetanus, that's pretty dangerous. So that's the safety mistakes that I made. As far as other mistakes that were made, trying to tunnel underneath here, you can see this thing is filling up right now, maybe because the sun is just blasting. I'll try and keep you in my shadow. So trying to get this tunneled, I should have maybe took a step back much sooner and really thought about that and analyzed, why am I having such a hard time getting that pipe underneath there when I could clearly see that there's a connection running underneath there. And that would have saved me a lot of grief and a lot of anger, because I really did get pretty angry over not being able to get that pipe through, because it was really frustrating, to spend that amount of time and all this effort, and then to just be continually jamming that pipe in there and just going nowhere. And yeah, so that trick of I'm about ready to get sprayed here. Let me get this back in. It's kind of floating up a little bit because of the part of the hose is just plastic at the end there, so it'll be a little bit buoyant. Yeah, it's filling up pretty good. Let's see, some of the other things that I did that might have been wrong. Oh, right. I started off with just tooling that I don't think was adequate. I didn't really realize how bad things were with regard to trying to dig up this clay. So my advice to you is, if you can, try and use a pressure washer to blast your way as far down through clay as possible, because that worked out just fantastically to try and tunnel underneath this sidewalk here. It really did. It was so much easier than the back-breaking work of trying to dig this stuff up, because trying to dig all this stuff up down here, I'm pointing, you might not be able to see it, but down here, all this stuff that I dug up, it was a freaking nightmare. I'm not even joking. It was so painful and exhausting to try and dig all that up, that I would highly recommend, if you're going to do it,
and you don't have a pressure washer, or maybe, I don't know, I didn't try digging down with a pressure washer, so I'm just speculating that it would probably work out pretty well with a pressure washer. But I do know what did work much better than just trying to like shovel through it is A, getting a rotary hammer with a spade bit, and then B, using a post hole digger to pull the material out that you've loosened up with that rotary hammer and spade bit. Just trying to use a shovel or a pickaxe or something along those lines, it is not good enough. Trust me on that one. You probably couldn't tell again because, you know, every frame is 5 seconds. And I believe the video plays, I want to say it's either 30 or 60 frames a second. So that'll kind of give you an idea like how long it took to dig that out. It took like, it was probably a good, I want to say like 20 minutes per wheelbarrow full to actually get that out. And oh, look at that, the sun's going down. You can kind of watch the sunset. So yeah, just going through clay, that is definitely what you want to do. And also, I know I had mentioned this, I don't remember if it was this video or the other video with the garage, but with regard to ordering materials, definitely want to make sure that you get more than you need, because it really sucks to not be to not have enough material on hand and have to go back and get more. Because as you can see right here, that's what I messed up on. I thought that I would have plenty of 4-inch PVC pipe to route those drains and tie them into that sump basin, but I had enough for this one because, you know, that's a very short run. Didn't have enough for this, and I was really surprised that I actually didn't have enough. I thought that I would have plenty. It was just barely not enough. So now what's going to wind up happening is I'm going to have to go back to the hardware store and pick up one more of these PVC 4-inch PVC lines and tie that in, and then go ahead and put a 45 on there, drill another hole, so that way I can have both of them, you know, flush and dumping all the water inside that sump basin, which is almost all the way full. But you can see like how much volume this thing will take, which is great. I didn't want to have this thing like not be able to hold a lot of water. And the reason why it's able to hold so much, because if ordinarily it would have filled up like a long time ago, but what I've done is drilled a bunch of holes inside the interior, well, I guess drilled holes through it. So what's happening is that there's actually water that's going to be all around this as well, because you saw the big hole that I dug. So that's all filled with pea gravel now. And so that's also acting as a reservoir to hold a lot of this water, which is great because, like I said, we get just an unbelievable amount of water when it rains, and when it really, really rains. I mean, you know, we get the light rain just like everybody else, but man, when it pours, it is no joke. This thing, man, like I said, it was spraying out of here like a fire hose and just washing everything out and into our pool. So the next project that I'll have, not next project as far as like my videos, but the next project back here that I'll have with regard to anything with drainage will be, I was kind of thinking about maybe putting in a channel drain right here to kind of head off the water that might be coming down the sidewalk here. Maybe I'll wait till one more rain to see how this performs. And the other thing was, I had mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and put a channel drain along here. And I was almost thinking about like, hey, you know what, if this works out really well, then I probably don't need that channel drain. But then I started thinking about it, and this relies on a sump pump to remove the water and discharge it way over there. The problem with that is that these storms that we get, they sometimes have high winds and they have lightning, which can cause power outages. So if the power goes out, I am stuck, right? Because that just means all this water is going to be pouring down, the sump basin is going to get full, and it's going to do the same thing that it was doing before, which is dumping out all over the place and right into the pool. But with a channel drain, there is no power that needs to be, you know, in place for that. It's just going to work solely on gravity alone. The only thing that I'm curious about and maybe a little concerned is, will one channel drain be enough to handle all this water? And even if it's not, it's gotta be much better and help to really carry a lot of that water out of here. And that's almost all the way full. I think it's full enough. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. My sinuses are really just bugging me again. So we got a full sump basin and we're ready. let's go ahead and plug this thing in, and you can see how fast this thing works. Bear in mind, it's a 3/4 horsepower. So there we go. Look at that. You can see it over there discharging all the water, and you can see how fast this is going down. It is just booking it. This thing just, it's pretty amazing. Like, and you can see what I was talking about, how over there, it's already almost all the way empty. And you can see all the holes that I poked in there, and that's where all that excess storage of water is kind of leaching back in. I'll probably wind up drilling some more holes in there just to make it a little bit more efficient, so that way it'll not shut the pump off that quickly, because it's gonna have to cycle a couple of times so you can see it again. So yeah, let me come over here so you can kind of watch it. It's probably gonna discharge a couple of times, but this is kind of the natural channel that it'll take. So it's blasting all this water out here. It'll kind of like linger around here a little bit, but for the most part, what the water likes to do, and you can kind of see it out there, it'll kind of come around here and just mosey on, and you can see all the sand here. It's already been washing it. There we go. So yeah, we're just about done. I think I still got some of the water that's kind of around the edge there that's flowing in. But this will be great, because now with both these drains discharging into here, any excess water that is going to be pouring down this way will also kind of go through the pea gravel, so it'll kind of filter it out a little bit, and then it'll eventually dump down inside of here, because this is, I purposely made this much lower than the surrounding area in here anyways, so that way any water that's going to be in here will just naturally flow right into that sump basin and then get discharged out, instead of coming out here and going off over there. All right, I think that's a wrap. Sun's going down, and it's probably about time for me to eat, and I need to go get some nasal spray. Yes, my sinuses are, I can tell they're starting to mess with me. But thank you so much for watching this. It was well, there we go. I guess we got one more discharge going on there. It's, like I said, it's really nice to see this thing in action and doing what it's supposed to do. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you got any tips or comments, I'm sure that there's plenty of things that I didn't do right, and I know that there will be people who are like sump pump experts and drainage, you know, gurus, who are going to be like, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that. And you are probably, well, I'm going to say you are definitely right. If you like these sorts of videos or whatever, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you on the next project or the next music video or whatever the heck it is that I post next. Cool. All right. See you then. Bye.